This video is really hard for me to watch.
No, I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid just as long.
Whew, wow. So this video is really hard for me to watch. And it brings back flashbacks of when I lost my voice while I was working on a cruise ship back in 1999. And because it was a contract, it was my job, I had to sing through it until I finally said, I need to go home and heal. But until then, I was just singing through it. Let's just take a listen. Here's a little quick clip of what I sounded like my last week on the ship. I sounded a lot worse earlier, but this is what I sounded like, what I have a recording of. So here we go. Yeah. So, okay, her gaps in her voice are much bigger and much more pronounced than mine in this example, but it's the same thing. We have the same thing going on. So when your voice, unfortunately, when your voice gets to this point, your only real option is to go on vocal rest in order to heal. It's how I healed myself after I lost my voice when I sounded like that. And here's the thing, the voice needs time in order to repair without consistent trauma. So that's why you have to go on rest. It's not necessarily about being silent as much as it is stopping the trauma. So when your technique is not in place, when you're not doing things correctly, what's happening is your voice isn't able to operate the way that it is supposed to be operating. So it's supposed to just, your cords are supposed to just be able to flap together when the air passes through. When you are consistently traumatizing it by initiating sound from your throat and placing it in the wrong way, stretching your chest past where it's meant to go, it causes them to slam together repeatedly and to dry out and all kinds of awful things that cause them to swell. And when they swell, that inflammation makes it so that they can't meet. And the only way you make sound is for those cords to meet all the way. So when they're swollen, you get gaps. And that's why your voice sounds like that. Like you have these big gaps in your voice because there are actual gaps in your cords where they're not touching. And they can't make sound when they're not touching. What I did during my months of silence, of being on vocal rest, was I committed myself to figuring out what caused me to get in this situation to begin with, and then figuring out how I could never get there again. And then shortly thereafter, I became a vocal coach, and I've now had 21 years of experience doing this with other singers. Besides the squeaky, scratchy sounding voice, which is very obvious, another characteristic of having a vocal problem like hers is that it takes so much more air to make any sound at all. So I'm going to play another little clip of her where you can hear this, like the effort that she's going through to make sound, and it's not even a high pitch or anything. So how different it is, how hard she's working to make that come out. Do you hear that? She's working so hard to get those pitches out on Has Come. You can see her mouth making it. You can hear her breath coming through before a pitch actually decides to show up. And that's her, what's happening is that she's sort of probably not consciously particularly doing it, but she's shoving, pushing extra air up there, trying to like will her cords to come together. Again, she's probably not thinking, I need to push my cords together, right? That's not what she's thinking, but the air is going through there at this huge force. And that's what's, is making it that's her effort. That's what we do when we lose our voice. I remember going through that. There are places, I watch these old videos from being on the cruise ship, and I can hear those things in my own voice. I can hear that air and the little squeaks coming out like that. It's kind of terrifying. So yeah, you hear how hard it is for her to get those pitches out. It's very exhausting when you have that going on, when you're pushing more air out just to try and make any sound at all. And then what comes out isn't really that great anyway. It's squeaky. It doesn't have the same like vibrant tone. That was the other thing I remembered about my voice, that not only did I have these big gaps in my singing, but the tone wasn't as pure and clear, and I always use the word vibrant. It didn't sound alive. It sounded sick. It was. All of that to say, there are, I specialize in helping people get themselves to a point where this kind of situation doesn't ever have to happen. This kind of situation to me is like worst case scenario. And I know it's not. I know there are much worse situations, much worse possibilities. But this was my personal hell, being in this situation. And it brings tears to my eyes to hear other singers going through this. So the work that I do with singers is to help them make better choices so that they never have to get to this point in their singing ever. Now, the bonus of making those better choices is that not only do you never lose your voice again, but you also gain the ability to do things with your voice you didn't think were possible. And the reason you didn't think they were possible is because your technique was causing you to go down this road. When you switch your technique over to the right way, it opens doors and it opens libraries of songs that you just didn't think were possible. And if you are in this situation, please rest yourself, because it's the only way you're going to heal. All right. Have a great day, everyone.